Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We are delighted that you have joined us today. This is a very, very special day. We are grateful that God has given us life just to be able to see another day. It's something we do not want to take for granted. So we are really grateful that God has given us another day. And so, welcome to today's Africa on Love Bay Afrobeat Radio, your number one online Caribbean African online radio. And we do go live every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are live on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, Instagram, and of course, TikTok. And so, today is one of those days that we are really grateful that for the whole year we have been um, broadcasting. And of course, we broadcast live all the way from our studios in Canada, all the way in Canada, in Toronto. And we are so grateful that our executive team, Miss Janice and Mr. TYB, uh, they've created such a platform for us to have these discussions pertaining to life in general, but also mainly to talk about African matters, especially in this particular program. And of course, Love Bay Afrobeat Radio has quite a variety of programs. They are live 24/7. In fact, every time I'm in my office, when I'm working on something, I put a Love Bay Afrobeat radio in the background. They have quite a variety of music genres as well, but not just music, like I said. There are also other programs. We talk about health, we talk about relationships, religion, Christianity in particular. We also interact with other people from different faiths, and we do bring in guests who are passionate about Africa. We have Africa at heart, people who care about what is happening in the world, in the diaspora, on the continent of Africa, and all that. So, this is your host, Dr. FM here. Just delighted that you have joined us. We go live in over 100 different countries every Saturday, and I must say, this is the last one for the year. Next week and the week after, we're going to take a break, but we will be back the very first week in January. We'll be back on air, but we will be sharing some of our previous broadcasts as well. But it's been wonderful having you as part of our viewership and listenership, and we don't take that for granted at all. So thank you very much for making time to be with us. And again, welcome to Love Bay Afrobeat Radio, your number one online radio. African and Caribbean flavors. And we're just so delighted that you've joined us. Today is one of those special days. We have a special guest, and we're going to be talking about creating value based services. Our guest has been with us before, Eni Gonyora, and I have a very, very important question that I'm going to ask her just as our chief engineer brings her into the studio. Annie, we want to find out, what have you been up to since our last show back in May, I believe. And so, what have you been up to? Welcome to the show.
Dr. Francis. Hi, Dr. Francis.
Hi, Annie. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us today.
It's good to see you too.
Hey, it's good to be seen anytime at my age.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's so nice to know that this is the final show, so it's like ending with a bang. I'm truly honored to be back.
I like that.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to since our last broadcast?
Since our last broadcast, I think we were talking more about the education initiative. I wanted to start 1,000,001. Let's just say, like the good African soil, I've been taking my time. uh, exercising patience as a virtue, building quietly. I think the most fundamental reason why I came home was to stop looking from the outside in. I wanted to be there, boots on the ground, and understand that in as much as I want to change a lot of things, I have these thoughts, these ideas, the systems I want to create. I needed to see how viable they were on the ground. What was the real? Because sometimes we think about solutions without understanding the actual problem. And I don't say it in the fact that we don't understand the problem, but most time if you haven't faced or you haven't walked the problem, it's very difficult to ascertain the level of impact that you can make or that you should make, which is what was quite an eye opener when I came on the ground. And I realized that there was a lot of things I needed to pivot. Um, there was also a huge culture shock as well. It was welcome because I was anticipating that things are not going to be easy.
It sounds like our guest has just disappeared briefly there. We hope that she'll be able to come right back in. We are having a conversation today with Annie Gonyora, who is a storyteller, who is a visionary, and who is a change maker. The last time we were talking about youth development, so we were talking about what things need to be done to ensure that we are including our youth, our young people, in some of the things that we are doing in Africa and in the diaspora, pretty much globally. And so we are continuing this conversation to find out what she has been doing, some of the challenges and opportunities. But more so, we are going to be talking about how do we create value-based services. Many people have skills and talents and trainings that have equipped them with so much resources. But then, how do you share that with other people? Because we don't go to school just for ourselves. We don't obtain skills just for ourselves, but to give back to the community, to interact with others, and make a difference in other people's lives. And so we're going to be talking about when you have these value based skills and trainings, and you want to have a service to other people, what do you do? How do you go about making sure that you are able to transfer or you're able to share your skills, your services with other people? And so this is why we have Annie Gonyora back in the studio today. And sorry for that brief disappearance there. We just hope that technology will be in our favor today. And thank
Yeah.
you, Mr. TYB, our chief engineer, making sure that she gets back right in. So, yeah, so you were just explaining some of the things that you have been doing. And one of the things that came to my mind is, Annie, you strike me as someone who is very creative. And because of this creativity that you have, I see some of the things, I'm aware of some of the things you shared with us last time with regards to wanting to impact communities, especially young people and the youth and
Yeah.
young adults and all that. And
Yeah.
I think people like yourself can actually live in or with frustration. Let me tell you why I'm thinking along these lines. You see, things don't come by quickly, and sometimes it takes a while for people to actually see that what we have is something that they need.
Yeah.
And see, it's not cut and paste like, you're typing something, you cut and then you paste. But
Yeah.
when we're talking about sharing concepts and communication, it just
Yeah.
doesn't transfer from my mind to their mind, from my mind to your mind in such a way that, oh, okay, now you have the full data. It doesn't work like that. So
Absolutely.
tell us, I know you even went to India, and we'll talk about that hopefully along the way, but what are some of the things that, uh, I didn't want us to start with things that have been kind of getting under your skin. I wanted us to start on the positive, but I just feel so inclined to just say, let's
Yeah.
touch on that. What are some of those things that you have found that are like getting under your skin with the
Yeah.
creativity and the skills and the training and the passion and everything that Annie is?
I mean, you're literally hitting the nail on the head. I came with a bag full of ideas, a heart full of passion and zeal and drive. And coming from a first world country, the systems are very different. Everything is a concept, an idea before anything else. So people gravitate a lot to innovation, to ideas, because they understand that a it takes a network of people to bring life to an idea. But the one thing that has been somewhat prevalent to my conversations with people in Zimbabwe is that everything should be ready and polished, product done, ready, put on the table. What is it that you want to offer? I like to call them doubting Thomases. They like to see before they hear. I understand it all looks great, but do you think it's going to work? Why? And the most consistent question I've been getting is, why would you leave a first world country to come here? Things are not so easy here. And I mean, it's not just cutting edge with just even service providers, it's with people in influential positions, it's in people in teaching positions. It's pretty much everybody who says there's nothing to do here, that's not going to work here. It only works in the first world countries. Um, it's big to dream, but you need to be realistic in Zimbabwe. You need to, you need to hustle. And I get it. I understand what they mean. But recently I went to a school because I have the school programs that I'm trying to roll out. We're talking innovation, we're talking entrepreneurship, we're talking AI. And even the educators themselves were asking me, why would you come here? Uh, there's so much more to do out there than to come here. And I find it so discouraging because these are the people that are teaching our children. If they do not have faith that we can build systems just as they did in the first world countries, if they have no hope that there are people who have ideas that could actually change the way we view the way we work, then what is the point? This is when I realized that in as much as I came and my main focus was focusing on the schools and the students, grooming them while they're young, I had to step back and understand that, okay, we need to deal with the root problem where it's at, and that's the hierarchy, like starting from the people who are educating, the people they're living with in the homes. There is just this really, really sinister conversations people have about people who want to return from the diaspora. It's unheard of. Everybody's trying to get out. So it makes no sense. And I've had to spend more time justifying why I'm back, whereas to actually promoting what it is that I want to do. And another thing as well, the service industry is in shambles. I don't I say it with the fullest of heart, not trying to be too critical, but the service industry definitely needs work. I'm not talking just um, basic industry. I'm talking all industries. Um, One thing I've always been saying is that, when you are in a functional country where everything works, the client is key, the client is king, and you come where service is just, it's a notion, it's nuanced, it's not an expectation. It's if I have a good day, you know what we're going through in Zimbabwe, it's become almost permissible and understandable. But the thing is that we are not always constantly interacting with our own. There's a huge eye on Africa and Zimbabwe at the current moment, even in the investment space. And we have to understand that we're not just giving service to people who we have grown up who understand the constraints of the economy or whatever or not that will make people disgruntled or not good at service. But we also want to attract the people that live with everyday functional systems. Because the disparity, even for me growing up, and I'm a born, bred, proudly African person, it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to take in to get into a store and you can't even be served with some form of dignity. It's like you're doing people a favor, and I've been cringing at that. And you know, for anything, I've been in the CX industry for over 10 years. I am a CX expert. So customer service for me is at the pinnacle of every business. You cannot talk business, marketing, leadership without understanding the root core. Customer service is the cutthroat of it all. It is literally the pinnacle, one of the most important pillars of any business. I'm talking in educational space, in government space, in corporate space. But it's almost non-existent in the shops,
Mm.
in the schools. Very few I have gone and I've really applauded and said, I really, really felt like I was a customer there or I was giving even when you come there as a service provider, you know, there's a certain level of acumen or etiquette that should go with every industry. It's a requirement in most first world countries. And with us, it's nuanced. You either get it or
Mm.
you don't. So that has been really, really, really tough. And obviously, infrastructure, you know, you used to being online all the time and you having issues with data. And if it's there, it's too expensive. If it's if you get it, it's on and off. So I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done, but I'm loving every process because I'm also learning and unlearning certain things. You know, trying to unlearn the comfort I'm used to and understand that what is it that I can bring or make it better. So, which actually took me to the pivot of my business. So, instead of actually launching, because I came to co-pilot, I'm like, okay, they're never going to understand what it is that I want to deliver unless certain systems have to be put in place. And I have to start there. So then that's when the pivot happened and I redirected to creating value-based services, you know. Actually, how can we train even our children from the time they're very young? Which is one thing you touched on when you said, when I traveled to India, I was amazed. Some children in the industries, whether they are going to study to be a doctor, they start learning the fundamentals of that industry by the time they're 8 years old. So by the time they actually get into the tertiary stage, those those minor principles or the major principles um, of that industry are already inbuilt in them. They
Right.
already have the empathy, the compassion. So everything else, the education aspect of things becomes an added bonus. Whereas you get to our hospitals and doctors show no empathy, nurses show no compassion, and it's just it's sad. It's not to say all of them, but I think we just need to remind ourselves about Ubuntu and who we are as Africans, you know, outside the constraints that we've gone through, outside the harsh economic issues and the challenges, and just remind ourselves that for us to be able to scale globally, the world expects to us to meet a certain standard. Empathy went out the window in the first 10, 20, 30 years, probably Post independence, now we're talking plus over 20 years, we really have no excuse. We're choosing not to implement certain systems. We're choosing not to implement certain standards and certain levels of integrity in the business culture. And we miss out on certain opportunities. We miss out on certain doors, opportunities, you name it. So those have been my irks. But the rest have been lovely. Networking, getting to know people, uh, getting to understand what's thriving, what's happening, who's doing what. I've met the most amazing people here who have been very key and influential to kind of giving me little trickles of how to work the system, how how to speak the lingo and understand what's the language, what are people gravitating more towards. And I think once you are in that space where you're able to be on boots on ground, you can actually understand the pains. And I read one quote recently that really touched my heart, and it say that if you want to make an impact, gravitate towards your pain. So now that I was in a place of pain or grief, and I was really thinking, I wish I could do this, I wish I could do this, and I was seeing what was really frustrating and grieving me, this is where most of the most brilliant ideas come from, when you gravitate towards the pain and the problems.
You are touching on some very very important aspects of the reality of having creativity and having something you want to give and trying to help people see that need. It's almost like what they say, scratch where it itches, but we actually know that some people actually itch in the wrong place. And so you're trying to help them and say, no, you're actually itching over here. This is what you need to address, because what you think should be
Yeah,
addressed isn't
yeah,
really uh,
yeah,
the priority. One of the things I liked about you is you're not coming as someone who is bashing people or bashing where you have moved to. You have actually decided to go and live there. So you are not a visitor. You are not passing through. This is where you're saying, I am in Africa and I am African and I'm here. I've come to stay because this is where I belong. And I think
yeah,
that in itself um, creates a different understanding and flavor in terms of how you approach what is happening. You are learning, as in your own words, you said you're learning and unlearning, and yet allowing the people who have lived there beyond the time that you were away to actually help you to understand the system. And I think this is something very important for those in the diaspora. When you go back, yes, you might have certain skills and certain resources and certain whatever, but remember, there's a difference between I'm just visiting and moving back, or going back and moving and being there and saying I am here. Now, in that space, you're talking about uh, things that have frustrated you, and yet you're seeking solutions to those. Unlike other people who come saying, "Okay, this is what you need, and I'm coming to give you this," you're actually discovering things along the way. And I think there's no better way to actually learn. Uh, um, uh, Miss Gonyora, what you are experiencing is real,
yeah,
and saying our solutions have to come from within us and from within our context, not somebody
yeah,
else coming to tell us what to do, but we need to
yeah.
respond. So you are responding to what is happening, and that is beautiful. Now, having said that, what three words, I was just thinking about this and I wanted to put you in the hot seat here. What three words describe who you are in the midst of what you are experiencing right now? What three words? Don't explain them yet, just
Okay.
three words that just describe who you are and what is happening? Three words.
Creative, uh, impact driven, um, my and very compassionate. I
Okay.
think that describes me. Yeah, I'm a
Thank,
creative.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, in the midst of this, the creativity is still there.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
impacting lives is still there, and you're still very compassionate.
Yeah.
I think that is brilliant. That is brilliant. Now, choose one and unpack it for us in the context of where you are, what you're feeling, what you're seeing, what you're experiencing, and what you're planning to achieve.
I think I would focus more on the impact driven. Um, I think more than anything, my decision to move home, my decision to change my industry, my decision to get into education, has been centered around impact, understanding what is it that I can do to make other people's lives better. What part can I play in this really huge process? Whatever menial part I can play, whatever tiny little part or role I can fit in. For me, it's about what value are we creating for our people. It is one thing to be African, to talk about Ubuntu without really understanding what does the average Zimbabwean go through every single day. I talk from a place of privilege because sometimes many people will think I don't understand because you've been living in the diaspora, so you cannot relate. It is possibly true, but it's the reason that is the very reason that drives me. The fact that I cannot relate is some when I look at some things that the average Zimbabwean has to go through, and the constraints of everything, trying to get money, trying to put kids to school. I cannot fathom being in some of those situations. So it's the very thing that keeps me up at night where I ask myself if anything were to happen and I was to wake up and I'm in the deepest or the most remotest place in Zimbabwe, what would I need? What would my children need? I think when you understand why you're doing what you're doing, because one thing about me is that I'm very intentional. Um, in as much as everything could start off being very corporate, I could think about how much money I could make, how I could capitalize on the ideas, capitalize on the knowledge I have. Yes, that's all good and fair and fine. I believe that wealth will be created one way or another. But it's how many people can reach my services more than anything. So in every product I have created, every system I have created, every initiative I have created has a three impact model: profit and profit for nonprofit as well, and then it's going to be corporates for impact as well. Engaging our corporates to actually have more social responsibility, their corporate responsibility to understand why it is necessary to rebuild our nation, why it is necessary to help people access services that we normally take for granted on a daily basis. So it's in technology. If you are talking technology and digitizing the nation, you cannot talk to digitizing when you have not considered the 13-year-old in the deepest part of Africa, or the most remote part of Africa. If they are not included, then we are not talking digitizing. When I talk impact, it's about how far I can reach. It's not about what I can do. It's how far, whatever it is I am doing, how far can it go? Which part can it go the furthest? So for me, that's always going to be at the pinnacle of it. I think even those that knew me in my life where I was a fashion designer, even just as a fashion designer, I always used to ask myself, what impact can I do amongst our designers? What do the community need? Which is why I birthed or founded Blayo Board of Designers with a couple of other designers. It was in understanding what are they crying about, who can be the voice for these people. And then beyond that, as fashion designers, what is the part we can play to create an impact? I mean, even in environmental, we play along so well because we know that we are part of the hugest contributors to environmental degradation. What is the part we can play? So whether you put me in technology, whether you put me in education, whether you put me in fashion, whatever it is, it's always going to be impact based. And I think that's one of the core values that I hold dearest to my heart. And people don't get it now. It's understandable because everybody is very money focused. How much money are you making? What is it that you're getting? But for me, that's going to come. It's going to come. The most important things right now is the grassroots level. That's what's important.
Just listening to you, there's no question that you are a very down to earth person. You are someone who is community focused. You actually have people in your heart. There's no question about that. And we commend you for that. You're talking about profit making, but non-profit making and wanting to impact lives. Quite often we are driven by greed. We are driven by wanting to have so much that we can show off. But you are saying this is about impacting lives, and it's very, very encouraging to hear that. And those of you who just joined us, we're live here on Today's Africa with your host, Dr. FM. We're here on Love Bay Afrobeat Radio, your number one online African Caribbean online radio station. And we go live every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are live on YouTube, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. And today we are talking we are in dialogue with Annie Gonyora, who is a visionary, a storyteller, and a change maker. And we're talking about creating value based services. The information you shared with us earlier, I really believe with all my heart that it is relatable to all African cities and all African countries. You're talking about services, you're talking about being in an environment that is different from the one you would have experienced. And I think uh, I'd like to believe you are not the only one who has done this. There are other people who have gone back to their various African countries and are experiencing things. So we are inviting our listeners, our viewers, to join in the conversation uh, in our chats, ask questions, comment, and let us know where you're listening from. And this is very, very important for us. Now, I know that you mentioned that one of the things you are uh, committed to is just being compassionate. Now, we know that in many of our African countries, especially the difference between city and rural life, there are some young people, some youth, some young adults who are really going through tough times. Now, you are coming in not saying, I have loads and loads of money, here's money. You're coming to invest, you're coming to give your life, you're coming to invest in the lives of these young people. So, besides you being viewed as you're one of us, but not really one of us because you've been outside, why did you come back? What are some of the things you are doing to help yourself stay intact, to not fall apart, to be able to get up in the morning and say, yeah, I have work to do? You already said there's work to do. And that's very encouraging because some people will say, listen, this is too tough. I'm packing up and I'm leaving. But you're like,
Yeah.
there is work to do and I'm here. So, what are some of those things that keep you alive?
Now, the moments have been there, Dr. Francis, I'm not going to lie, where I'm like, I still have a return flight. But I think more than anything, one other thing I realized is that we romanticize, I think I spoke about this in the last podcast, we romanticize life in diaspora. Um, but oftentimes it strips us away from family, which was one of the huge grievances I had as a diaspora mom. It was very difficult to keep my head above water. Um, yes, I was in a place where everything is functional, systems move, people make decisions very quickly, but when there's no foundation to support you, it's very difficult. Um, and I think that was one of the reasons that I had so many several burnouts even while I was living in Dubai, because you are trying to really bury yourself in work. You're trying to keep busy. You don't want to think about everything else that could, should, or couldn't. So you keep working. One thing that I've realized ever since I've been coming home, just being surrounded by family.
Mm,
And that allows me also to speak my ideas out loud. You know, you have an audience that is very supportive, non-judgmental, that is very honest, that is very positively critical, and it has helped me refine even the ideas I thought were really sound because I got to hear myself out loud. When you take yourself where you're playing the role of, given all these titles I have, the continent lead, the Minister of Education, all of these roles sometimes can allow you not to feel like you can make a mistake or you can say, okay, maybe I didn't get this right. You always have to stand by what you have said. But back home, I I think about my ideas and I go through my ideas as humanly as I can. And that alone keeps me busy because then I'm able to refine, I'm able to review, I'm able to unpack and understand, why did I start this? Can it be changed? Can it be innovative? Can it be, even when I understand that, okay, this might not work in the geography, because when I thought about it, I was in a place of comfort and suddenly that comfort has shifted. So in as much as it sounds very weird to say work keeps me afloat, but it really has, because then understanding that, okay, I think now this is taking shape. That has been one thing. And networking as well. It has been really fantastic. I've been really putting my effort to put myself out there, attend seminars, attend conferences, um, get to know who's who, understand what it is that they're doing as well, because that has added this layer of connectivity to the grassroots. It has added this depth into my thinking, um, which helps me sleep better at night for some reason. Um, Also, just, you know what? The good rains have been so soothing. Honestly, we live in a jungle in the first world. Everything is busy. It's cities that don't sleep. You're constantly on the move. You hit the ground running as you wake up. But then you come to Africa and you understand that there's this level of ease. And I've just been soaking it in. It really has been therapeutic because I wake up, sometimes it's raining. I just being able to experience rain, it seems so trivial, but to me, it's just majestic. It's just what you need to actually spark the ideas. Just understanding I am here, and there's no, I can't explain the feeling really. I guess you'll have to live so long out there to understand what gets me so excited, you know. But those are the things that have really been keeping me together, being with my children, being with a community. And then I forgot how amazing it is to walk in the streets of Zimbabwe. You know, people still greet, they smile, in as much as they, I don't know about Harare, but Bulawayo generally, people still look at each other randomly and just say good morning. It's an expectation, and I understood when I first went to first world countries. I still greeted people on the street, and they looked at me like, why? But now I'm back in that element again, and I'm reminded this is what makes us beautiful as Africans. So it's just evoked this sense of purpose I've had because I'm like, I'm helping my people. I'm connected with my people. I'm where I'm supposed to be. And there's
Mm.
never been more alignment in my heart and in my mind than now. Yes, you're gonna have those moments where you really ask yourself, should I, shouldn't I have? But I think the good moments outweigh even the panic and the anxiety sometimes. So
You know what? You are just a bag of the resource. I mean, you're very resourceful in so many ways, and we're so delighted that we're having this conversation with you. Now, earlier on, you mentioned something about education and wanting to reach out to some of the schools.
yeah,
Now, there is a service you want to provide, but it seems that service is not being viewed the way it should be. Now, would you look at that as rejection, or would you look at that as you working harder to be a trusted ally, coming alongside? And what are you doing to help you uh, soften or smoothen that process so that the service you want to provide
yeah,
is really made available to the young people, our children who need these services? So, what is
yeah.
happening there?
So in that space, I feel like what you mentioned in the beginning, that sometimes people feel like, how can you understand what's here when you haven't been here? I've felt a lot of that resistance. And I, for one, given everything that I've achieved and all the roles I've been able to sit on and all the opportunities that I've been awarded, have come not from a place of being a fundi. I think we've had this conversation before because I dropped out of varsity, which is something I'm not proud of, right? I'm not. And I'm very honest about these conversations that if I could really understand why I made that decision when I made it, I probably would have rethought my decisions. But I still think I would take the same path because I think experience has made me more knowledgeable than someone who's sitting on a desk for 3 years. And given that my track record in leadership and in senior positions and senior management in absentia of a fancy degree or PhD or whatever proves and attests exactly what I'm saying. To say, yes, it's good to be very learned, but there's certain elements of education that we tend to miss as well. We will have these really, really qualified, educated, well spoken, eloquent children that are not able to survive
Mm.
within even their own geography. They're not even able to create employment or create ideas that could create employment because they're thinking within the box. And I know this is going to seem disruptive because I'm a disruptor, but I'm not saying children shouldn't get educated. I'm actually now currently now pursuing my PhD using my work experience in leadership and education. But we have to understand that there are key fundamental pillars that we are missing within our educational sector. And all I'm saying is that I get it. Let's learn science. let's learn maths. Bombard them with maths, English, or what. But the first world is excelling because they're expanding their net. They cast their net really wide. So you've got the children who are really, really good in education, right? In educational systems or in the corporate sector. And then you have children that are really thriving within the creative sector. Then you have children that are really, really doing well in the social media sector. In the next 10 or so years, there will be jobs we never even thought about, which is actually what is currently happening now. Content creators has actually become a real job. But if you look in five post or pre 5 years ago, it's like, what are you doing? You're always online, you're always on TikTok or Instagram. But the children who have been able to accumulate wealth using the very skills or the talent that they have. They have harnessed it. They know how to harness children's talents. But we tend to bombard with children with, if you're not smart enough, you can't do anything in the world. There's this level of education that we have set so high that the non-performers really, really cannot bridge the gap between success. Those that are lucky that get into entrepreneurship and get into deals or hustling, they do well. But what about the 80 or so percent as well? In in China, they're thriving because by the time a child is 8, 9, 10, they're literally grooming them within the skills that they have shown from a very young age, whether it's in design, whether it's in technology. Kids as experiments in school or class, they're building phones. They're making gadgets that they're being sold or put in the mainstream to be sold to Africa. And you got this brand that you don't even know, a no name brand, but it's a school project. And what are what children doing? They're doing all this really hefty, really content based projects that actually do not equip them with skills to go far beyond than work for somebody else, for work in the system. So fine, we've got 5,000 doctors that have graduated. Are all of them going to find work? But in first world, people have said, okay, we can't all be doctors. They've created roles within the same field that, how can I be innovative? How can I be different? What service could I create? Then you've got psychotherapists, you've got this, you've got this. There's so many roles that you can't even keep track with anymore. But we're still grooming children who sing the same. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a teacher. And that's all good and fine. But I'm saying in the world we are going to, and the world is changing, 21st century is changing so vastly in the technology we're using, in the industries we have known or we've been comfortable with. How are we keeping up to that? So we continue to fall in the funnel where we continue to be at the bottom of the food chain
Mm.
because we thinking, I need to go to school, I need to get my degree and go outside the country and then work, send money home. That's the average thought of most of our African children, parents, you name it. But we're saying, could we not evoke certain things? Which is fantastic because when I came home, I understood that they now have a value based curriculum, which I said, you know what, this is fantastic because they're actually understanding that we are pretty late on that. But whether we are late or not, it's better late than never. We got to start somewhere. We actually have to start somewhere and understand and recognize, how could we tap into the social media industry, how could we tap
Mm.
into the creative space. Some of the countries actually increase their GDP even from musicians, and our children are told, leave those things, read your books. You know the usual context. I'm a
Yeah.
product of that, where I was a fashion designer by the time I was 15. I was never taught by anyone. I would wake up, draw, sketch things that had never been seen before, And I taught myself how to sew. But even then, that didn't warrant my parents to support that dream because it's unheard of. It's un-African. Like you need to have a
Mm,
tangible career. You need to do a degree. That's how you're recognized. And I also think this is where the resistance is coming from because people are more afraid of what I will change or rather confront the ideas and the notions they've given their children for so long, and they're afraid of that change.
mm.
Maybe they're foreseeing a disruption, and I'm not here to disrupt. I'm here to support, to say
That
that
is
child.
that is a very very good point, and I'm glad you
Yeah,
mentioned that.
yes.
And I think it goes in with this question that comes from our brother Earl Sorrell, who says, "What are a few profitable based services for a community with minimal investments, especially for an individual or a family, able to generate income and promote education that can improve the economy in their neighbors, or, I mean, I guess in their neighborhood or their communities." So, what any thoughts on that, or any like what comes to mind in terms of that comment from Uncle
That's
Sorrell?
easy. First of all, for me, I'm always saying that you have to understand where each nation has got its own core. How can I say? It's core income generating elements. For us, it's agriculture. I couldn't say
Right.
this loud enough, right? It's understanding in every community what is it if you for you to be able to go forward you need to go back, right, and understand what is it that used to thrive within our community. Let's say you were a country that or a community that grew cotton, right? Most people overlook the most menial jobs. What I've been saying is that now we need to understand that the chain of knowledge is being washed down with every
Mhm.
generation. And communities are the only places or smaller communities that can harness that information, right? Nowadays, information data is money, right? Accumulating, going to the olden folks or the older generation and understanding what was our thing. Was it weaving baskets? Do our children know how to follow that tradition? Because I can guarantee you in 20 years, like take for instance, even with Nigeria, their own cloth, their cultural cloth is being produced in China. Not because they're not people who can do it, but because they cannot meet the demand. Most of the people that actually could produce this cloth are really old and never passed down the knowledge to their children and their
Mm.
grandchildren. So it's going back and creating those small initiatives and understanding what was our thing. How can we collect data of how it is done? How can we collect data on how we can groom and teach the younger children in the community to learn these things? Really embracing what made us famous because back then goods were commodity. Were what made money. So if you were growing cotton, it's understanding that cotton is the biggest industry product right now. Everything is going organic, everyone is going sustainable, you name it. And this is the time to understand okay, our land is more fruitful or it can generate more cotton than any other place we know. How can we now harness this cotton and make it actual product? Because the problem we have is always taking and sending out raw materials,
Mm.
right? And now, how can we make the functions that used to work back then? Now you're tapping into the knowledge of everybody has got some relative that's outside the country, that's in technology, that's in whatever it is. How can you tap into that knowledge from the different aspects or the different industries, right? To make these processes that were done back in the day more modernized, more functional, more faster, Once you can understand the processes that were there, only can you then improve them. Okay, so if they were picking cotton, how can we then now make it easier to pick the cotton without necessarily doing that? How can we process the cotton ourselves? How can we create our own cloth? Then now you're like, okay, in the community, which are the women that are actually have been sewing for many years, and what is it that they can teach us? You open little centers of teaching other younger children, younger girls, younger boys, because we don't segregate now. Boys and girls can work in any different in industry, cross and vice versa, right? How can we make products that are unique to Zimbabwe? And then now tapping into the communities of the people that are in diaspora, which is why I said more people need to have conversations, not just generally, can we have money? Can we have resources? Can we have funding? If we started having more conversations that we have a product, can we sell it to you? Can you sell it to us? It's very easier for people to open up their pockets or open up their, their savings to,
Right.
because once you have something in exchange to give and you're not always putting out your hand in help, it's easier for people to participate and to rope in other people that they know who can actually say, oh, my community back home have this project that they're working on. And then you start tapping into, okay, who is the most famous person or who is the well accomplished businessman within our community who's now been successful? You're not calling them to ask for money or favors. Can you
Right.
educate? Can you do programs with the children? How can we move their brains from trying to go outside? How can they see potential or opportunity within their own communities? This is where you start seeding, right? So that's a start already, because you are tapping into education, you're tapping into production, you're tapping into industry, and that's how we can revive or at least kind of start to get the engine going.
One of the questions I was going to ask you, Miss Annie Gonyora, is what values does Africa offer to the world? And I think in your responses, you actually responded to that, and you touched on quite a variety of things, and that is very, very impressive. And I'm looking at our time, and I realize, oh my goodness, the hour is gone already. I mean, you have uh, a lot of things to share. There's a difference between I have something to say and I have to say something. You are one of those people who is not just I have to say something, but you are actually someone who can say I have something to say, because I mean there's so much information you're bringing to our attention, and of course those of you who just joined us later on, we are speaking today with Annie Gonyora, who is a visionary storyteller, a change maker, someone who has been in the diaspora for a while and then went back to Africa and is in the process of just understanding the new environment that she has gone back to. I'm saying the new environment because it's no longer what it is. I mean, it's no longer what it was when you left. It's a different community. It's a different way of doing things, and so we are really just delighted to be having this conversation with you. And I'm just looking at our time, and I'm like, oh, our time has just blown. Listen, we have to bring you back in the new year, God willing, because there's so much. We didn't even talk about some of the things you actually did in India, and we will leave that for the next time. But you are such a resource. You are very resourceful, and we commend your vision to go back to Africa. And I know I'm generalizing, but you're going back to Africa to actually say, listen, I have something to give, I have something to live, and I am part of what is going on. You are not coming in, to bash people and tell them what they're doing wrong, but you are there to learn and unlearn, and knowing that this is part of you're discipling young people and life coaching as well, because not only are your children looking up to you, but your neighbors and all the other kids in schools, and you have quite great potential to impact so many lives, and we really wish you that and even more, because you have a lot to give. I really believe that, God, our creator, has invested so much in you through your own personal lived experiences, your own training, your own work experiences, the education, the training, formal, informal, that you have gone through. And now you are at a place that you are able to give that back to others. And so, I mean, when we talk about, you know, um, um, creating a value-based service. I mean, you are it. You are living that. You are experiencing it. You are you haven't arrived, but you are in the process of just finding out how does this work. And we we are grateful that you have made time to be with us. Now, I know I'm fasting. I'm putting you in fast forward here. Now, as we wind down, we I know we've been talking about creating these value based services, and you're absolutely right. This is the same thing I'm even saying to my friends, police services and police departments. Listen, customer service is number one. If you are going to make an impact in people's lives, you have to have customer service. It has to be high quality customer service and make it a priority. And you
Absolutely.
touched on that. You go to a bank, you go into a government office. I mean, listen, I've been there, not only in Africa, I've been in other parts of the world. I've been in the Philippines, I've been in Jamaica, I've been, you go to, I'm not, I'm kind of generalizing here, but you go to places where it's almost like people think that you're doing them a favor in coming there, but they're not understanding the strategic role and the importance
Yeah.
of the role that they have to serve
Yeah.
people and to actually represent the government, and to represent the organization and say, we're proud, this is what we do. What can I do for you? I mean, you walk in there and it's like people don't even recognize you're there. They mind their own business, or they're chit-chatting, what happened
Yeah.
last night. I know I'm generalizing here, but it's part of their conversation, and there are people
Yes.
waiting to be served. And I'm like, what's going on here? And you're saying we can change that. So, what
Yeah.
would be some of the things you would like to leave with us today, knowing that educators are listening to you and will be listening to you? Some of these business gurus are listening to you. Some of these
Yeah.
children are listening to you. So, what would be some of the things you would like to share with us along these lines of creating value based services?
What I would like to say is that I'm in no way comparing any country to our own, each to his own. But I will go back to looking at a country like Dubai, building the level of excellence that they have built from a desert. We have the most impeccable human resources. We are smart, we're eloquent, we're well spoken. And we should be in, really tapping into our Ubuntu. And our Ubuntu says that people first. If we are not bringing Ubuntu and empathy and compassion into our systems, we are not making any of the experiences good. And it is a hindrance because everything is about energy. How well you interact with people, what impact they leave to you. We need to look at every time you go to get an ID, every time you go to the store, every time you go to a government office, am I making an impact that will change what my child or my grandchildren is going to experience? When we look at how badly our culture has been eroded simply by things we can do and learn or unlearn on a daily basis, we really have no excuse. We talk about services, we talk about the government, we talk about this and that, politics. Everything is not political. It's apolitical if you tell me service is a basic human right. We need to bring dignity into our businesses. We need to bring good energy into the people we interact with because the economy and the environment is tough enough as it is. Having to deal with everything that people go through, there's nothing worse than actually having to feel like you need to negotiate for a service. And the most unfortunate thing is that the people who offer these terrible services always assume that they are not going to receive service elsewhere. So it becomes like a row of dominoes. You just tipple one, it tipples them all. When we talk about change, it has to start with the little things. It really has to start from the bottom up. And I'm not talking we are segregating anybody. This is really, really to everybody. For businesses to understand the value of what they have to offer, the customer needs to feel and connect with that business. And most of that does not happen because you don't have return customers because people are just not happy. And people no longer have a sense of loyalty to brands and to companies because if we're not going to get the service we need, we might as well go where it's cheaper. So we continue to really struggle and we continue to pull our weight so heavily, and it doesn't need to be like that. You change the systems and everything else starts to unravel. You start to fix one thing, even if it takes us years, even if it takes us whatever period it's going to take us, but it has to start somewhere. And for me, one of the key fundamentals is our customer service, our service culture. Service as a culture needs to be inbuilt. By the time our children are growing, they need to see and emulate it from us. They need to be able to walk into a store and tell themselves that if ever I work in a government office, I want to make people feel how I felt today and not thrive to get into government offices to pay back the pain that they have got getting these
Mm.
disservices. So I implore everybody in corporate, in government institutions, in hospitals, whatever view, we really need to think about the impact we are making post 20 years, post 30 years. We really are doing a disservice to ourselves. We're doing a disservice to who we are known for. Everybody has always spoken so highly of who we are as Zimbabweans, but even I, as a Zimbabwean, sometimes I'm appalled that I cannot attest to that in reality. And it starts by the little things, that
Mm.
simple greeting, hello, the efficiency in service should really be prompt. Customer is always king. And once we can fix those things, those fundamental things where educators even know that they're not doing our children a favor, but they're building the next generation of engineers, politicians that could potentially change the world or the environment as we know it. What are the seeds that we're planting in them? Because we may cry about so many things now, yet we are actually seeding the very same things within our children. If we
Yeah.
want to talk about a healthy political environment, how we're raising children that are compassionate, that are caring. If we were talking about healthcare system, we talk about we don't have services to this, we don't have this, but all that doesn't matter. Even if somebody is really sick and you do not have the equipment, just the human nature or nurturing of a human or the love of a human can change how well or how speedily a person can recover. So before we start talking about systems, the systems that need to change are in our mindset and in our hearts as well. And
This
I'm here to
this
help.
this is profound. Yeah, this is profound. I mean, what you're talking about. I mean, even though you are in one locale, I mean, you are. really spreading the same word to all of us across the continent of Africa and globally, wherever we are. You talked about energy. You know, you and I are responsible for the energy we bring into every space that we step into. And
Yeah,
so I really liked your comment on when someone steps into the store, when someone steps into uh, the government building or into the front office of your organization, are you making an impact to say, I want my children to actually aspire to work in this environment? What they have experienced is something that they want to see perpetuated. I mean, imagine if the customer coming in has the same mindset, the one who is offering the service has the same mindset. Oh my goodness. Think of
absolutely.
how that can transform us,
Absolutely.
globally. I mean, across Africa, a service. We are there to to acknowledge each other, but to impact one another from both sides. I am bringing money to you, you're bringing me a service, and I'm enjoying the experience so that next time I'll come back.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to go the other place. I mean, this is why you find people would go to the same barber. I mean, those of us who still have, I mean, those
Yeah,
of us who no longer have hair, we no longer go to the barber. But people would say, I've been going to them for 30 years. I've been going to them for so many
yeah.
years. Why? Because there's a relationship and you love the experience. So uh, we are delighted. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm really, really hoping that in the coming year, God willing, we should have more of this, because even today, we did not end up touching on some of the things that I wanted us to touch on. And so again, thank you very much for making time to be with us. As Ms. Sorrell here says, planting the seeds of progress is the key to improving a people. The paradigm shift does not start. I mean, the paradigm shift does not start with education. So very well said. I thought the paradigm shift does start. Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
It
that's
does
what
start. It does start with education. I was reading it
I
wrong. So thank you so much. That's a powerful comment. Education, 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 and we're not really stressing formal education. We're talking about education. We have an oral tradition. We have, written. We need to incorporate all that and and
Yes,
and, and just pass on the information so that the values that we have picked up as Africans are passed on to the next generations, and we are not going with them. One of the things I do when I go to a city, if I see a graveyard, I like to park my car and just walk around and just see the place. And usually I have this thinking within me, not that I want to go into the grave yet, but when my time comes, of course I cannot resist. But sometimes I look at that and I just wonder how many ideas and creativities and stories and
yeah,
innovations went with these people because they were not shared. So we really need to be intentional. So Annie Gonyora, thank you so much for being with us. And to our viewers and our listeners, thank you very much for being with us today. You've been here on Love Bay Afrobeat Radio with your host here, Dr. FM. And we go live every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are live on YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and of course, TikTok. And so, again, thank you. Thank you for being with us today. And like I said, we're going to take a break. Our team has worked hard for the whole year, so they're going to take a break for a few weeks, and we will be back the very first week in January, God willing. We will be back again, and I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to our executive team who have created the opportunity for us to have these kinds of conversations on today's Africa here on Love Bay Afrobeat radio, your number one online Caribbean African online radio. And so we are just delighted that you've been with us. And again, thank you for being with us. And before I sign off, I want to let you know that our chief engineer, Mr. TYB, he had his birthday yesterday. So, Mr. TYB, congratulations. Many blessings to you, sir, and keep up the good work. You ensure that we go live and we stay on air as we do these programs. And of course, Miss Janice was part of our executive team. Thank you so much for the good work that you do. Keep up the good work. And of course, this is uh, the one that we're winding down the year. Thank you very much. We're looking forward. If you haven't done that yet, please subscribe. Make sure that people get to know the link. And you can also go back and watch previous broadcasts. They are all archived, and you can continue to listen to that as well. So spread the word, and we're looking forward to being together again, God willing, in the coming new year. And so to our co-host and the executive team, the media team who make sure that we have flyers. There are a lot of people on this team who really make things happen, and I'm so grateful that I become the face you see. But there's so many giants out there behind the scenes who are working hard to make sure that this is done, and I'm eternally grateful for that. And thank you for the opportunity. So, by the way, coming up on the hour is the Caribbean Flavor with Miss Jen Tublu and Mr. Marcus, and you don't want to miss that. And again, keep up the good work and keep on keeping on. Remember, you are responsible for the energy you bring into any space. Let's continue to bring good energy and be a voice of hope, a voice of encouragement to other people as well. Till then, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Blessings to you.